On this, we're now crossing to Professor Gerald Steinberg, who's the founder and president of NGO Monitor. He joins us from Jerusalem. Professor Gerald Steinberg, a series of charities now and even UN bodies have been rocked by scandals. This doesn't bode very well for the sector, does it?
No, but it does show that we're dealing with a very, very large and powerful framework. It's really an industry. The NGOs like Oxfam, Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and many, many others have incomes of hundreds of millions, in some cases almost $1 billion a year. And like other industries, they need to be monitored. These people are human. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of employees. And within that framework, you're always going to have people who violate the rules. But what's happened with NGOs or the NGO industry is that they've had something called the halo effect. And that is that journalists have not investigated them. There are no oversight bodies. There are no codes of conduct. And clearly what we're seeing now is the result of many years of neglect. That needs to end. NGOs need to be examined for what they are and not the images that they project of being very wonderful volunteers that are immune from these kinds of scandals.
Now, of course, you are the head of the NGO Monitor. What kind of recommendations can you make to avoid future scenarios like this? I know you said they're human, but I mean, surely this is an industry that many people put their trust in.
I think we need to look at this issue of trust more carefully and examine very carefully what groups like Oxfam, how they operate, what's the structure, what's the management structure. Do they have checks and balances? The answer for the most part is no, they don't. And so therefore what we need, first of all, is a universal code of conduct. In many other areas, there are codes of conduct. There are ethics courts, journalists and bankers and many other fields have rules and regulations. Some of them are governmental, some of them are voluntary, but these NGOs, the NGO community, needs to immediately start working on a code of conduct and have a very clear deadline to do that, which includes oversight mechanisms, which includes various means of investigating and punishing people who are responsible for violating the rules. Oxfam knew about this individual in some of these cases years ago. In some cases they reprimanded it, but did it quietly. In some cases these people moved to different places. So we now have another scandal involving someone who was at Save the Children, involved in similar types of corruption, went to UNICEF, recently, today, I think, resigned from that. That should have been brought out a long time ago. So if code of conduct and a means of investigation will help a great deal with that. The second aspect is for the funders, and many of these are government-funded frameworks. Governments put in a lot of money. The British government and other governments give money to Oxfam, give money to Amnesty, give money to many other organizations. The governments that fund also need to start looking at NGOs as frameworks that need regulation. Just like any other government-funded mechanisms and frameworks, they need to be regulated, and that must be serious. I would recommend 10 to 15% of the overall budget that's used for humanitarian aid or human rights and similar types of activities needs to be devoted to an independent watchdog agency in each government which investigates how the money is spent and any kind of scandals or any kind of reports that come up of individual misbehavior. If that had existed, the Oxfam scandal that we see now would have been caught a long time ago.
Gerald Steinberg there, the founder and president of NGO Monitor. Thank you for speaking to us on France 24 and, of course, bringing us that roundup of the scandals that have recently hit the charities and various UN bodies. And thank you for your recommendations, of course.